had always believed he knew what fear felt like. He had walked through storms, climbed cliffs, and survived harsh deserts on distant colonies, yet none of that prepared him for her. She was unlike any being he had ever encountered. The first time he saw her, she was standing at the edge of the observation deck, bathed in the soft glow of the station's external lights. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver under the starlight, and her eyes, large, glowing, and sharp, seemed to pierce straight into his thoughts. He felt a strange pull, a mix of awe, intimidation, and curiosity. It was the kind of gaze that could freeze a seasoned warrior in place, yet he forced himself to stand straight. The station was silent except for the low hum of life support systems and the occasional flicker of the lights. Boots clicked softly against the metal floor as he approached the crates he had been sent to deliver. He tried to focus on the task, but her presence was magnetic. She moved with a fluid grace that reminded him of predators he had studied in distant jungles. Every step she took seemed deliberate, as if she calculated the effect her movements would have on him. And then she smiled, or rather smirked, a small, confident curl of her lips that said she already knew something he did not. His pulse quickened. He had trained his mind to remain calm in dangerous situations, but this was different. This was not a storm, not a wild animal, not even a hostile human. This was an intelligence so alien, so superior in design, that it seemed to radiate confidence like heat from a star. He could feel it pressing against him, testing him. He was just a human, a fragile creature compared to her imposing frame, or so it seemed. But beneath his skin, his muscles were taut, honed through years of survival, discipline, and determination. He was human, yes, but not weak. Humans had a stubborn kind of strength, the kind that refused to bow even when the odds were impossible. Her voice cut through the silence like a blade, smooth and melodic, yet carrying an edge that sent shivers down his spine. "You've come far for something so simple," she said, her words laced with amusement. "I wonder, do humans understand what they are truly capable of?" Stomach twisted at the challenge hidden in her tone. He could feel the unspoken meaning behind her question. She was testing him. Not physically, at least not yet, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. She wanted to see if he would falter under pressure, if he would break under the weight of her presence. Lifted his head, meeting her gaze without hesitation. He could not show fear. To falter now would be to admit weakness, and humans were not accustomed to yielding easily. "I can handle it," he replied, his voice steady despite the thrum of adrenaline in his veins. It was not a boast. It was a statement of fact, a simple declaration that humans had a resilience she might not have expected. The alien smirked wider, tilting her head as if to examine him further. "Interesting," she murmured, almost to herself. Then, without warning, she gestured toward a hovering training apparatus near the deck's center. Lights flickered along its edges, casting an eerie glow over her hands. "Let's see what you're made of," she said, her words carrying the weight of both a challenge and a promise. Heart thudded in his chest. He had come here for supplies, for routine work, yet he had stepped into something far larger, far more unpredictable. As he moved toward the apparatus, felt an unfamiliar thrill of anticipation. It was not fear alone, nor excitement alone. It was the strange mixture of both, an electric current running through his veins. For the first time, he realized that this encounter was not about delivery or duty. It was a test of human endurance, courage, and spirit. She expected him to falter, to collapse under her strength, to break like so many others before him. But humans had a way of surprising even the most confident alien warriors, and was about to show her exactly what he was made of, stepped closer to the floating apparatus, feeling the faint hum of energy ripple under his boots. The alien woman's eyes followed him, sharp and calculating, like a predator sizing up its prey. Every muscle in her body seemed poised to strike, yet she didn't move. She let him approach, letting her confidence fill the space between them. Could almost feel the invisible weight of her judgment pressing down on him, testing his resolve. His heartbeat was steady, though, a quiet rhythm of focus and determination. Humans might look fragile, but they carried a stubborn strength that could defy expectation. "Do you understand what this is?" she asked, her voice smooth yet tinged with amusement. She raised one armored hand and tapped the edge of the apparatus. Small holographic lights flickered, forming a shifting pattern of symbols and shapes. "It can break you if you are weak, and it will judge every reaction, every movement, every hesitation." Glanced at the strange holograms, then back at her. He didn't flinch. Most would have hesitated, intimidated by the unknown, but fear alone would not define him. Humans adapted, humans survived, and intended to do both. The alien shifted slightly, leaning forward, her smirk widening. "I've seen many try," she said, almost conversationally. "None have lasted, none have met the challenge without breaking, and when they did break, well, I admit it was entertaining." Her eyes sparkled with amusement, yet there was an edge of expectation. She wasn't cruel, she was a test, an embodiment of her species' belief in perfection. Fingers clenched lightly at his sides. He was just a human, small and comparatively weak, yet he refused to be an easy victory. His body, conditioned through countless trials, tense and ready, pulsed with latent strength. Suddenly she moved. Faster than the eye could track, her armored hand shot toward him, aiming for his chest. Reacted instinctively, twisting his torso and tightening his core. Her fingers pressed against his abs, expecting weakness, expecting him to flinch, but instead she met something solid, unyielding, a taut wall of human endurance. She felt a shock ripple up her arm, a sensation entirely unfamiliar. Her smirk wavered, replaced by surprise. Humans were supposed to be fragile, weak. But's body resisted her every attempt, not with brute force alone, but with precision, balance, and determination. Could feel her strength probing, testing, measuring every inch of his body. And yet, despite the speed and power she brought, he did not falter. He countered her subtle pressure with his own stance, shifting weight without thought, his movements fluid and natural, a product of instinct honed through years of survival. Every strike she attempted met resistance. Every test she designed met a quiet defiance. Her eyes narrowed, not with anger but with fascination. She had never encountered a human who could meet her in such a way, who could hold firm without aggression, yet resist without hesitation. The air between them seemed to hum with tension. Felt his pulse quicken, but not with fear, it was anticipation. He was learning her patterns, reading her subtle movements, sensing where she expected weakness and deliberately choosing strength instead. It was a dance of wills, a silent conversation of challenge and endurance. And with every passing second, the alien's initial smugness gave way to curiosity, to respect tinged with disbelief. Then for a moment, time seemed to slow. Her hand pressed harder, testing limits, expecting to falter, expecting a reaction of pain, of surrender. But he did not. His abs remained unyielding, his posture steady. And in that moment, the unthinkable happened. The alien's smirk wavered entirely. She realized that her assumption that he would break, that he would falter, was wrong. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were resilient. And this one, this single human, was proving that her world had underestimated them entirely. Exhaled slowly, steadying himself. He didn't speak. Words were unnecessary. His body had spoken. Strength, endurance, and determination flowed through him as naturally as breath. The alien, once confident, now watched him with something closer to admiration. This was more than a challenge. It was the beginning of a realization. Humans were not the fragile creatures she had assumed. They were something far more remarkable, something worth nodding, worth testing further. And was about to teach her the limits of her expectations. The alien woman's eyes narrowed as she adjusted her stance, her armored fingers flexing with quiet menace. She had expected him to flinch, to collapse under the pressure of her strength, yet remained unmoved. A spark of frustration, or was it fascination, flickered across her face. He was human, fragile by all conventional measures, yet he resisted her every attempt as if his very body were forged from iron. The hum of the station's lights and machinery seemed to grow louder, echoing in the charged space between them. His breathing remained steady, a slow, controlled rhythm despite the adrenaline coursing through him. He could feel her testing him, probing for weakness. Every inch of her approach was calculated, precise, a perfect demonstration of alien strength honed over countless battles and trials. And yet she had not accounted for the human stubbornness he carried, the quiet determination that refused to yield. His core was tight, every muscle ready, and every nerve alert. She would not find him as easy as she assumed. Without warning, she lunged. The motion was swift, almost invisible, her hand shooting toward his chest with the speed of a predator striking its prey. Reacted instantly, his body twisting with practiced precision. The tips of her fingers pressed against him, expecting a human to falter, to cry out in pain, to yield. Instead, she met something solid. His abs tensed like steel plates beneath his skin, resisting her grip with a force she had not anticipated. A flicker of surprise passed through her eyes, quickly masked by controlled amusement. Could feel the strength in her hand, the power behind her expectation. It was more than physical. It was an assertion of dominance, a challenge issued silently, demanding submission. But's body, trained to endure, met her attack with steady resistance. He was not trying to overpower her. He was holding firm, letting his own strength speak without arrogance or provocation. Each second stretched longer than it should, the tension between them palpable, the air charged with anticipation. For the first time, the alien's smirk wavered. She expected struggle, groans, weakness. But all she saw was a human unmoved, resolute, almost serene in the face of her strength. Her fingers pressed harder and abs remained unyielding, a silent refusal of defeat. The holographic lights of the training apparatus flickered over their forms, casting shadows that danced across their faces, highlighting the intensity of the moment. The station seemed to hold its breath, suspended in the rare pause of perfect balance between two forces. His mind was clear, focused not on pain but on observation. He studied her posture, the subtle angle of her arm, the way her fingers adjusted for leverage. Humans survived by noticing patterns, by adapting to challenges in real time, and now he was reading her movements as carefully as she had read his body. With each press, each calculated attempt to test him, he found stability, balance, and control. His body was a shield, his determination an unbreakable edge. The alien felt a strange sensation ripple through her, shock, surprise, and strangely respect. She had faced humans before, and always they had broken, faltered, or yielded, but not this one. He met her strength with something entirely different, resilience. And in that realization, a new thought surfaced. Perhaps humans were underestimated, not by accident, but by those who refused to see the potential in what appeared weak. Suddenly, a tiny slip. The pressure of her hand against his steel-like core caused her wrist to jolt slightly. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but in the silent intensity of the room, it was monumental. Sensed it immediately, adjusting his stance to absorb her energy without faltering. Her expression flickered between disbelief and curiosity. Could this fragile human really endure without breaking? Could he actually match what she had assumed would be effortless dominance? Exhaled, calm and controlled, his chest rising steadily. The alien's smirk had vanished, replaced with a gaze that acknowledged what she had not expected. For the first time, she recognized human strength not as physical fragility but as unyielding spirit, a quiet power that refused to bow. And in that electric moment, realized that this clash, this first confrontation, had changed everything. He was no longer just a human in her presence. He was a force to be reckoned with, and she could not ignore him. The observation deck remained charged with silent tension. Neither moved immediately. Both understood the unspoken truth. The first clash had ended without defeat, but with revelation. And as met her gaze, steady and unwavering, he knew one thing with absolute certainty: this was only the beginning. The alien woman straightened, her silver skin catching the soft glow of the station's lights. Her eyes, once sharp and confident, now held something new, a spark of curiosity mixed with frustration. She had expected him to yield, expected the human before her to crumble under her strength, yet remained steady, unmoved, almost serene. His calm her expectations, and it irritated her in a way that was strangely fascinating. No human had ever resisted her like this, and for the first time she felt the faint thrill of uncertainty. His breathing was even, controlled, though his muscles were ready for anything. He could feel her eyes tracing every movement, calculating, predicting, searching for weakness. And yet every attempt to unbalance him met resistance. His body responded instinctively, the product of years of training, discipline, and survival against impossible odds. She struck again, faster this time, a flicker of her hand aiming for his side, a probe meant to elicit reaction. But pivoted, absorbing her movement with careful precision. Her fingers brushed against him, expecting groans or a stumble, but he did not falter. The alien's smirk returned, but it was different now, less a sign of superiority and more of challenge. She leaned forward slightly, testing him again, more aggressively this time. Her fingers pressed against his torso, tracing his muscles with deliberate force. Felt the pressure, sharp but controlled, and countered without effort, using the strength in his core to remain unmoved. The realization struck her: this human was not only strong, but he understood how to use his strength intelligently. It was not brute force, but mastery of self, a human quality she had underestimated. Around them, the station seemed to fade into the background. The soft hum of machinery, the flickering lights, even the distant stars visible through the observation windows, All of it became a silent audience to their unspoken contest. Every glance, every movement carried weight. Every twitch of muscle or flicker of her eyes was a conversation, a challenge, a test of endurance and willpower. And calm and steady, was speaking in the language of persistence, an unspoken message that humans did not break easily. She tried something different. Her hand moved swiftly, pressing against him with a twist, attempting to unbalance him. The maneuver was precise, trained, and meant to assert dominance, but shifted just enough, absorbing the energy, turning her force into nothing. He didn't need to resist aggressively. He only needed to remain firm, letting his body's strength and stability speak. The alien's surprise was visible now, a flash of something almost like admiration crossing her features. She had expected to crush him, to bend him to her test, yet here he stood, unyielding, human, yet formidable. For a long moment they paused. Her eyes searched his, trying to find a crack, any sign of vulnerability. But there was none. Met her gaze evenly, showing no fear, no hesitation, just quiet determination, quiet strength, quiet resilience. And in that instant, the alien understood something fundamental. Humans were unpredictable. They could endure, adapt, and even surprise the strongest of opponents. Strength was not only in power, but in spirit, in will, in the refusal to bow before expectation. Her hand flexed again, slightly faster, testing him further. Abs tensed, his stance solid, and he met her movement without struggle. She recoiled slightly, almost imperceptibly, the first sign that she acknowledged his unexpected resilience. It was subtle, but enough. A spark of respect ignited in her mind, mingled with a desire to push him further. She realized that this was no ordinary encounter, no simple demonstration of power. This was a meeting of equals in a way she had never imagined. Different species, different forms, but a confrontation of endurance, intellect, and will. His chest rose and fell evenly. He was not triumphant, but steady. He was not mocking, but firm. And in that quiet steadiness, he communicated a truth she had not fully grasped. Humans could endure far beyond what appearances suggested. The alien's smirk softened, shifting into something more thoughtful, more intrigued. She had expected an easy display of dominance. Instead, she had found a human who met her strength with unyielding resilience. And in that realization, she began to understand that the games of power she had always played were only meaningful when the opponent could rise to meet her. The rising tension between them was no longer about fear or intimidation. It had evolved into something more complex: curiosity, respect, and the recognition that this encounter had grown beyond a simple challenge. Had proven that human strength was not just physical. It was stubborn, adaptive, and unbreakable when properly applied. And she, the alien warrior, now faced a reality she could not ignore. This human was extraordinary. The alien woman's hand hovered over him, her armored fingers trembling just slightly, a subtle sign of something she had never expected. She had believed herself untouchable, confident in her strength and skill. Every opponent she had faced before had faltered, had crumbled under her control, but was different. The calm defiance in his stance, the tension in his muscles, the unwavering focus in his eyes, it all screamed one undeniable truth: he would not break. And in that instant, she felt something she had rarely experienced: uncertainty. She pressed harder, not with cruelty, but with calculated force. Her hand moved over his chest and abs, seeking to test, to challenge, to dominate. Every pressure point, every subtle twist of her fingers was meant to elicit surrender, to draw out weakness, but absorbed it all. His muscles flexed, hard and unyielding beneath her armored grip. The shock of her strength collided with the firmness of his human form. She had anticipated resistance, but not this. Not the perfect, precise, unbroken resilience of a human trained in the art of survival. A gasp escaped her throat, a fleeting instinctive sound she quickly covered with her smirk. She had never imagined such endurance. Humans were supposed to bend, to falter, to yield. Yet here he stood, silent and unyielding, a quiet wall against her expectations. Her fingers trembled slightly against the solid surface of his abs. Every ounce of pressure she exerted met with absolute resistance. She realized then that this was no ordinary human strength. This was steel forged in spirit and perseverance, a testament to the stubborn heart of humanity itself. His eyes remained calm, unflinching. He did not push back aggressively, nor did he attempt to dominate her. He simply held firm, allowing her strength to meet his own, letting his body do what it was trained to do: endure. Every shift, every breath was deliberate. He was not trying to prove dominance. He was demonstrating what humans were truly capable of when tested beyond expectation. And with every second that passed, the alien's confidence wavered further, replaced by awe, curiosity, and something unspoken: respect. Then it happened. A small, almost imperceptible snap of her wrist signaled the first real sign of strain. Her armored hand, so confident moments before, had met a force she could not bend. The pressure of Squeal, the sheer solidity of his form, caused her fingers to falter. It was subtle but monumental. She stepped back slightly, her gaze wide, almost disbelieving. Her hand throbbed, and a strange warmth of respect and shock ran through her. She had never faced someone who could withstand her in such a way. Never. Noticed the slight recoil and adjusted his stance, easing just enough to relieve her strain without giving ground. His calm, measured presence seemed to amplify the effect, showing her that she was not in control in the way she assumed. The alien warrior, once confident in her dominance, now stared at him with a mixture of astonishment and admiration. The balance had shifted. The silent contest of strength and endurance had reached a turning point. He had proven not only his physical resilience, but the unbreakable will behind it. For a moment, the world around them, the hum of machinery, the flickering lights, the distant stars beyond the station, disappeared. Only the two of them remained, locked in a quiet but intense standoff. Sai's met hers, steady, unwavering, and in that gaze he conveyed something more profound than words. Human strength was not measured by size or muscle alone. It was measured by spirit, determination, and the refusal to yield when challenged. The alien warrior lowered her hand, her fingers still tingling from the shock. Her smirk returned, but it was softer now, tinged with awe rather than amusement. She had expected an easy victory, a simple demonstration of her superiority. Instead, she had discovered something extraordinary. This human, small and seemingly fragile, had stood firm against her unmatched power. And in that realization, a new understanding dawned. Strength was not always obvious, and resilience could come in the most unexpected forms. Exhaled slowly, his chest rising steadily, calm as ever. He had not spoken, not even moved aggressively. Yet the message was clear: he was human, he was unbreakable, and he had earned her respect in a way no words could convey. The clash had ended, but its impact resonated far deeper. He had proven what humans were capable of when underestimated. And the alien warrior, once certain of her dominance, now faced a truth she could not ignore. Humans were remarkable. The alien woman stood a step back, her armored hand still tingling from the impact of steadfast form. For the first time, her eyes softened, losing some of their usual sharpness. She had approached this encounter with a clear expectation: dominance, control, and the quiet satisfaction of proving her strength superior to that of a fragile human. Instead, she found herself looking at him with something new, something unfamiliar: respect. Not the kind that comes from fear or submission, but the kind that arises when one realizes that the assumptions they carried were wrong. His chest rose and fell evenly, his breathing calm, steady, and unshaken. He did not gloat, he did not boast. He merely existed, a human form that spoke volumes about endurance, discipline, and determination. The alien studied him closely, noting the subtle flex of muscles beneath his skin, the quiet confidence in his eyes, and the unshakable calm in his stance. She realized that human strength was not just physical. It was mental, emotional, and rooted in a stubborn will to endure. And it was that will that had just withstood her most precise efforts to dominate. She stepped forward cautiously, this time without the intention to test or overpower. Her hand hovered in the air between them, a silent gesture rather than a threat. "You are remarkable," she said quietly, her voice almost lost amidst the hum of the station. Inclined his head slightly, acknowledging her words with modesty. He did not seek praise, yet he understood the weight of her acknowledgement. Humans rarely received recognition from beings who considered themselves far superior. Yet here it was, offered not out of obligation but genuine realization. The silence stretched between them, not awkwardly, but as though the universe itself had paused to witness the meeting of two minds, two species, two different worlds. She studied his eyes and saw something more than resilience. They were filled with quiet curiosity, a willingness to engage, to understand, to face challenges without fear. And she recognized in herself a reflection, albeit alien in form, a being used to mastery, to dominance, now learning to respect something entirely different from herself. finally spoke, his voice calm but carrying weight. "Strength is not always in what is visible," he said. "Sometimes it is in endurance, in persistence, in refusing to give up when the odds are against you." She listened, nodding slowly. His words were simple, yet they resonated deeply. For centuries, her species had relied on physical superiority as proof of power. Yet here was a human, unassuming, who had not only met her strength, but had subtly taught her that power could exist in forms she had never considered. For the first time, the alien woman allowed a small, genuine smile to cross her face. It was no longer a smirk of superiority or amusement. It was softer, warmer, and carried an emotion that had not yet seen from her: admiration. And in that smile, a bond began to form, a quiet understanding that transcended species, size, and assumed dominance. Respect had grown where intimidation had once reigned. They moved closer, not with the tension of confrontation, but with the curiosity of discovery. The alien's hand, once poised to dominate, now brushed lightly against the apparatus, a signal that she no longer sought to overpower him, but to engage with him. Mirrored her movements, calm and cautious, aware that trust was forming in tiny gestures, in shared acknowledgement of each other's strength. The air between them felt lighter, yet it hummed with energy. It was a shared recognition of potential, of intellect, and of spirit. She realized that humans were far more unpredictable and capable than she had been taught to believe, and in turn recognized that she was not merely a physical force, but an intelligent, disciplined being capable of growth, reflection, and respect. In that quiet moment, the alien warrior's eyes softened completely. She had expected to dominate, to test, to amuse herself with the predictability of human fragility. Instead, she had found a kindred force, not in form, but in spirit. And standing firm, calm, and unwavering had shown her that strength was not always measured in the obvious ways. It could be silent, steadfast, and deeply human. The tension that had once crackled like lightning between them transformed into a subtle current of understanding. They were no longer adversaries, not entirely. They were observers of each other's potential, each learning from the other, each gaining a glimpse into the power of respect and the extraordinary nature of endurance. And in that transformation, both knew that the story of this encounter had only just begun. The observation deck felt different now. The low hum of machinery, the distant stars, and the flickering lights no longer carried tension but a quiet resonance, a subtle acknowledgement of something new between them. The alien woman, once poised with the certainty of dominance, now studied with an expression that blended curiosity, admiration, and unspoken respect. He had endured not through aggression, but through resilience and patience, and in doing so, he had reshaped her understanding of human capability. His breathing remained even, his posture calm yet alert. He did not seek recognition, yet the acknowledgement in her gaze told him everything he needed to know. She saw him not as fragile or weak, but as something rare and remarkable. The air between them pulsed with quiet energy, a shared understanding that went beyond words. Humans were underestimated across the galaxy, often dismissed as fragile or expendable. Yet here he was, a living testament to their endurance, their strength, their unyielding spirit. She stepped closer, this time without the armor of expectation or challenge. Her hand hovered in the space between them, hesitant, as though testing trust rather than strength. "I underestimated your species," she admitted quietly. Her voice carried no edge of superiority now, only honesty. "I expected weakness, surrender, predictability. You have proven unexpected." Inclined his head slightly, acknowledging her words. There was no need for pride or boastfulness. His resilience had spoken louder than any declaration. The alien warrior extended her hand, not to dominate, not to strike, but as a gesture of understanding. Accepted it, their fingers brushing in a connection that was both literal and symbolic. It was the unspoken agreement of equals, a recognition that power could take many forms, and that true strength lay not only in physical might, but in spirit, patience, and the courage to endure when all expectation says otherwise. For the first time, the alien allowed herself a full smile, soft, genuine, and free of the arrogance that had marked her at the beginning. It was a smile that acknowledged the rare truth she had learned. Humans were formidable, unpredictable, and capable of defying expectation in ways that even the most disciplined warriors could not anticipate. And the human before her had embodied that truth completely. They stood in quiet companionship, the intensity of their earlier encounter replaced by a subtle warmth. The observation deck, once a stage for challenge and testing, had become a place of understanding and connection. Sensed her curiosity, her desire to learn not just from him, but about the human spirit itself. And she, in turn, realized that strength could exist beyond domination, in endurance, patience, and quiet courage, the very qualities that made him extraordinary. A moment of silence passed, filled not with tension but with recognition. She tilted her head, studying him closely, and for the first time saw a glimmer of something deeper in her gaze. Perhaps admiration, perhaps intrigue, perhaps the spark of trust. They were no longer simply tester and tested. They were observers of each other's potential, two beings from different worlds finding common ground in resilience and willpower. Exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the encounter settle into something profound. He had faced expectation, challenge, and physical trial, and had emerged not broken but acknowledged. The alien woman's presence, once intimidating, now carried the promise of collaboration, mutual respect, and understanding. She had underestimated him, as her species had underestimated humans for centuries. But now she saw the truth. Human strength was not always obvious, but it was formidable beyond measure. As the stars stretched infinitely beyond the deck's windows, they stood side by side, silent but connected. No words were needed to convey the bond forged through challenge, endurance, and unyielding will. Had shown that humans could endure, could resist, and could inspire respect even in the most formidable beings. And she had learned that strength came in unexpected forms, that true power was not in domination alone, but in acknowledgement, understanding, and shared experience. The first clash was over, but its impact lingered, deeper than either had anticipated. Two worlds had collided in quiet confrontation, and from it arose a bond stronger than mere muscle, a bond built on trust, respect, and the recognition of extraordinary spirit. The alien warrior smirked faintly, not in superiority, but in acknowledgement, smiled back, calm, steady, and unbroken. In that silent understanding, a new chapter began, one where humans were no longer underestimated, and one where strength was measured not only by power, but by the courage to endure.